All right, the Lil Kim gets jiggy. This is a great pattern based on a fly fishing streamer called, excuse me, called the Lil Kim. It's got a great profile in the water, great color. It takes a licking and it keeps on twerking. So let's get started. I'm using a 3/8 jig head, but you can use whatever you want. I want this one for a little bit deeper water. So start with your thread base. I'm using Veevus 140 and just wrap back. Don't worry about the material keeper right now or this gap where you don't have any thread, because you want to make sure you get thread on the powder coat, or else your materials will slip. For the tail, we're going to be using marabou, and for that I'm just ripping the marabou off the stem. That allows me to use marabou that has like thick stems like that I typically might not use. So we're going to start and tie in just behind that lead and in front of the material keeper and wrap back. I want to keep a lot of this material up here, because what that's going to do, that's going to give me a smooth transition from the bare shank to the lead, so you don't get a bump and you can tie in your materials really securely. Next is going to be some chartreuse, and you're just going to want the chartreuse to be just a little bit longer than the pink. We're just trying to build a nice bait fishy profile into this bait. And cut that. The final color will be some purple. I'm getting kind of low on my purple, so it's going to have to be tied in a little farther back than the other ones. And the tail is almost done. Next, I'm going to be using some 4-inch Mirage Bandaboo. The original doesn't have flash, but I like my jigs to be flashy. You want the longest part to be the same length as the purple. Grab that and wrap those smaller pieces back. That's going to kind of add to the visual taper also by having the long ones and short ones. 2 on each side. Tying all those materials in up forward, keeping a nice smooth transition between the two pieces of the hook. So now the tail's done. For the first part of the body, we are going to be using UV polar chenille. Tie that in. Get all these materials really locked in place in case there's any gaps. And you can see now how that transition's really smooth and there's no gaps, and your materials are going to lay on really nicely. I do kind of looser wraps with this, then get them progressively tighter. You'll kind of see some of your pink thread through the materials, but I don't really mind that too much. Adds a little bit more color. And once you get ahead of the material keeper, you want to do 4 or 5 touching turns. Just enough. Clean all that up. Now we're going to flip the hook over and just going to repeat the same process. We're going to start with some pink marabou. And you want to keep working on that taper like we were doing before. So this marabou is going to be slightly shorter than the last pink that we just put in. Tie your materials right up to the jig heads. There's no gaps. And now come in with some chartreuse. Just slightly shorter than the pink, not too much shorter though. I like to add a little bit more marabou to these ones up front too. Kind of builds up her profile and gives you a really nice look. Last step is purple. And that's done. Next, we're going to tie in some rubber legs. I'm tying in four rubber legs on each side. I'm just using some rubber legs that I cut off a skirt that I don't really use, and they're really good size for this one. I don't like these to be super long. And this is another part that the original does not have. But what's a jig without rubber legs? So that's all in there. Clean up your head a little bit. Sometimes you have to build up some thread so you don't have a drop down there. When I keep this tie-in point really flat, that way you don't get your materials riding forward or riding back. Next is 2 pieces of schallpen. You want to tie those concave facing the jig shank. That'll just make wrapping a little bit easier. Cut off the excess. And you want to wrap these pretty tight. Stroke those materials back as you go. Now wrap this all the way up to the jig head. That purple was just a little bit shorter, but we'll get enough wraps in there. We also have to negotiate with them a little bit. Pull up on your materials, really get them tight. And now we're going to add 2 more pieces of Mirage Flash on each side. Except for these, we're just going to double them in half. So the fly materials are tapering, the tail's tapering, the flash is tapering. It just kind of all builds the taper and the profile of this jig. Tie those in. And then the next step, it might be unnecessary, but I have a little bit of an obsession with guinea. So I'm going to do a guinea collar. You could do a barred schallpen collar. You could do a normal collar. You can also just leave it off. I just really like the way guinea looks in the water and what it adds to stuff. Just get all those stroked back. You don't get a lot of turns over these when you're going over when the material keeper has that lead going back to shank, but you get enough. Grab it, pull it back on itself, wrap back over it. Look, and clean up your head if you need to a little bit. Whip finish and use your head cement of choice. Give this a try. If you're going to be tying this on a fly, it's pretty much the same steps. You just want to make sure you tie the tail pieces in, because the hook point's not going to ride up on a fly unless you tie it that way. The original is tied with a bead, so just keep that in mind. Really like this one. There's lots of colors you can do. You can really blend, get yourself a really cool look that the fish might have not seen. Fish all your favorite colors at once. There it is, the completed Lil Kim. Give it a try. Thanks for watching.